Advantage gambling, or advantage play, refers to legal methods in contrast to cheating in casinos used to gain an advantage while gambling. While not illegal, advantage play is often discouraged, and some advantage players may be banned from certain casinos. Amongst the Wikipedia, they talk about blackjack. There's definitely advantages there. Sports and horse betting, poker. You don't see anything about trading, whether it be stocks or cryptos. Advantage play is the act of legally exploiting procedural or structural weaknesses in some aspect of casino games or operations in a way that generates an edge over the casino. Advantage players play table games, side bets, slot machines, and video poker. Actually, it could be true that advantage players play slot machines. I did read in magazines that Las Vegas had slots that actually had positive ROI. Hard to believe, and this was 10 years ago plus. But anyway, investing in stocks is just like gambling. The reasoning causes many people to shy away from the stock market. To understand why investing in stocks is inherently different from gambling, we need to review what it means to buy stocks. A share of common stock is ownership in a company. If we change the stocks to crypto, and owning crypto means you are owning a share of that particular cryptocurrency. The definition of gamble: to play a game for money or property. To bet on an uncertain outcome. That makes it very easy to debug the definition, because certain on a mathematical level is extremely easy to define. And that is anything. The word certain is anything with a percentage likelihood fixed to occur, which has to be basically 0 or 100%. So if it's certain that an event is going to happen, then it's 100%. And if it's certain it's not, it's 0%. If it's any number in between, whether it be 0.01 or 99.99%, then the event is no longer certain. And that's why I guess we must gamble. We're forced into it. For example, say we're playing blackjack, and the aces, twos, threes, all of the numbers on the right-hand side represent how many of them have been played. Statistically, mathematically, to sit down and play, well, you're an advantage player. And if I were to tell you and ask you, what's the count? What's the count? And if you give me plus 16, you're fired. It's plus 25. At least the advanced count that I used, which I've never taught anyone, but it does better than the standard high-low. Here's another one. You're playing poker. Deep stacks. 100 big blinds, 150, some big number, no antes. It's folded to you on the big blind, and you got 2 cards. What's your play? The answer is you do a minimum raise. I have done a lot of mathematics within this precise play, as well as many others. This one is by far a mathematical correct play. So in a situation where, say, you got blinds of 1 and 2, you min raise it to 4, so you're risking 3 to win the 3 that's out there. You will notice that if you do this over the long-term time frame, that you are going to actually take it down before the flop, at least until the people get to know what you're doing, well over 55 to 60% of the time. Plus, the times you get called, you have a free pot to play on. And sports betting, the pressure is on them, the bookies, to make the mistakes. They're making thousands of lines for situational outcomes amongst many different sports. And it's interesting. I remember as a child in 1985 going to Exhibition Stadium in Toronto to watch a Friday night game between the New York Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays, when the Blue Jays had a chance to clinch the division in one of the most miserable sports games ever played, and the Blue Jays were defeated. The Yankees were still alive. On the next day, on the Saturday, the Blue Jays won. They clinched the division, their first ever, and then they had a meaningless game on Sunday. And I remember going to my aunt's place, and the ball game was on there, and a whole bunch of guys I'd never heard of. Yankees crushed them 11-0. It was so, it was just, who are these guys? And they just looked bad. So a few years ago, the Blue Jays made the playoffs for the first time in a while. They defeated the Baltimore Orioles to clinch. And the next day, they faced them again. And I noticed that the lineup for the Blue Jays were, again, a bunch of players I never heard of. And Baltimore had a pretty decent starting staff on their team. And the lines makers decided to make the Baltimore Orioles as a pick'em, or a 50-50 shot, small favorite kind of deal. So in those situations, I unloaded, of course, on the Baltimore Orioles in that game. A few years back, I remember a situation when the World Junior Hockey, that team Finland, they were huge in talent. And yet the bookmakers thought Canada should have been the favorite. I put a significant bet on Finland on the money line to beat Canada, and it was correct. That's what you do as an advantage player. And as far as trading the market's concerned, you find the patterns, the techniques, the ones that work, and you play them. At least that's what I do. Now let's assume that the exact same fungible cryptocurrency trades on two different exchanges, and the bid-ask differential is as shown amongst. The advantage play would be to sell to this person and then buy from this person. As well, maybe trying to get in a bidding war with whomever is in at 15,000, because if you can hit some 14s, much cheaper to buy it back. And as I'm doing this video at this time, I'm executing this with one code on a particular exchange, already helping out to ensure that I'm going to have a good profitable day today. Advantage play. So then, when it comes to different things like understanding the situations, chart reading, the mechanisms, the numbers behind situations, most definitely can get into a clear advantage. And getting into Bitcoin, when we have seen the steady rises in appreciation over this time, has been just magnificent. Just taking the simple route into buying Bitcoins and then holding them, selling some at profit-taking situations, or maybe to small degrees making very small amount of trades that can make profits. Whether you work in a day trading level, there is a lot to be available here, but it's always going to take skill. And skill is another word for hard work, but it also means the ability within the hard work as well. So therefore, the more that you could push yourself towards giving yourself the advantage, the more likely it can become such. And then when you can become an advantage player, then the sky's the limit, and there are lots of great potential opportunities that can become available. And I actually was watching a video from Doug Polk a couple days back. I can't remember if it was a new or an old video. I don't think that's doesn't really matter too much because it wasn't that long ago. And he's stating, and he's a poker player, that I guess a lot of the people amongst the poker community are getting into the crypto community space as well. And Doug Polk would be an advantage player as well. But yeah, just some ideas in whichever, anything that you can get in fair gamemanship to give yourself an edge within game theory. Well, to me, that's what game theory is all about, because Herm Edwards, former coach of the New York Jets, you play the game to win. You play the game to win. Like, really, what else? You don't go to play to lose. That's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to win. And for me, trading this market is a double variable effect right now. One, Bitcoin increasing in value. You play the game to win. Second part of the game, instead of just holding Bitcoins and taking what would be a very beautiful win, seeing prices rise over 5 times from the spring, but by making wagers, whether it be playing a poker game, whether it be making a sports wager, and I've profited both ways this year on those games. Or, of course, most important, or the largest gains coming from trading in and out of other cryptos. And I got a lot more Bitcoins than I started with. And you play the game to win. You need to be positive, but you need to be real. And when you notice you are making mistakes along the way that are costly, then shrug them off and move forward, because when you understand the losses that you make consciously, realistically, without really affecting yourself in a poor conscious way, but in a positive, constructive one, that means those mistakes not only don't come, but more of the winning plays keep on approaching, which of course helps you win the game. Thank you for tuning in. Take care.